A little while ago, I put out a poll to ask you guys what would be the first double feature you'd like me to do on Movie Tales. Over half the votes went to probably, I can't confirm this, I have to think about it for a little bit. Probably one of my favorite franchises of all time. If not my top 5, it's in the top 10. That went to Tron and Tron Legacy. And before we delve into the amazing world of Tron Legacy, we have to go back to where it all started. So picture it's 1980. The world is still on the verge of technology. We're getting there. We have credit cards and leg warmers, and we're slowly building up to be, a digital world. We got certain technologies on the horizon. Computers are still a ways away, but we're getting closer. What if you were a filmmaker and you're like, I know the future. I know how things are going to be, and I want to make a movie about that. So you make Tron. And I'm going to say this, and I wholeheartedly believe this. It's going to be a broad statement, and some people might not agree with me, but I'm going to say this about Tron. It is one of the most ballsy movies I have ever seen in my life. Because it is a big studio tentpole film that is absolutely insane. I could not imagine growing up in 1982, going down to the local cinema and watching this and thinking, that was cool. This is insane. This is madness. It is one of the weirdest looking films you are ever going to see. And I absolutely love it. I think I haven't seen it in a couple years, maybe 5, 6, 7 years. Maybe I'm going to say it's one of my favorite films of all time. It's definitely one I think is so cool that nobody else is going to get. When people talk about their favorite dystopian realities, like Black Mirror this, The Matrix that, I'm like, no, it's Tron. Tron is the most colorful, insane, trippy experience of your life. And it doesn't feel like an LSD insanity trip. It's just like, nah, these are bright colors, weird people fighting in a computer. It's amazing and it's cool. I love every second of this film. I don't think there's a wasted moment. Towards the third act, does it get kind of slow? Yes, maybe. But it's fun. It's cool. I love everything about this. So here's the initial concept of Tron. Imagine in the real world, there's a big corporation called MCOM, and one of the guys who's in charge, his name is Dillinger. What an 80s bad guy name. Dillinger, just the worst. He stole kind of this code and these programs from a guy called Kevin Flynn. Kevin Flynn got fired from this company. Now he works as an arcade guy. He just runs an arcade. Can you get any more 80s? Maybe. It's amazing. Jeff Bridges is Kevin. It's great. Now, he has an ex, and her name is Lori, and she's currently dating this guy called Alan Bradley. And they're working at MCOM still, and they're like, what Dillinger is doing is bad. He is blocking all our code, including the code for Tron. Now, Tron in our world would be this program that is just wiping out all these bad security things, so it only keeps one thing in check, and it just fights for central control from the user that is operating it. Tron is basically anti-pirating software. It's just an antivirus device. That's what Tron is, okay? Now, they see that Dillinger's doing something bad, and they think oh, maybe Flynn is the one hacking into the systems that's causing this, company-wide shutdown from us accessing our stuff. So they go to the arcade to find Flynn, and he's like, yes, I have been doing that, but if you guys get me into the actual building, I probably will be able to hack into it, and we can reveal that this guy's an asshole. So when they do that, they go to this area, and we see that Flynn goes to Laurie's quarters. She kind of works in the laser bay. There's literally a button on the elevator that says laser bay. So they go there, and the laser hits Flynn, dematerializes him, and sets him into the program, into the world of the computers. And then we see that these computers, they are fighting in tournament-style combat games in order to be, controlled by the master controller. And they need to free the oppressive rule of their dictator. It's insanity. If you are in 1980, if you're a kid in the 80s and you're watching this, you're like, this is insane. It makes no sense. It's unbelievably creepy, but it's so cool. Just the visuals alone. And I get it, it's like one of the earliest examples of CGI. It looks dated, but the perfect kind of dated. It's like playing an old arcade game, and that's the feel it's going for. The stuff with the light cycles, the stuff with the disc, just the way everyone's wearing shoulder pads and hockey helmets, and they just got strip lights put on them, and they just turn different colors, and like every time they walk into nothingness, it's just like you're not actually touching this step. It's just like a weird painting you're just pretending to walk in front of. It looks great. I love it so much. It is just a beautiful, insane ride. I think it's such a fun experience. I adore it so much. I just love the way it's got just like vibes of just like Star Wars. It's like, here's our team oppressing the Empire. It's like, yes, let's do it. It is so cool. I love it. And Jeff Bridges is just the perfect lead for something like this because the guy just gives off elderly tendencies where he's like tired of everything while still being young and like vibrant. He's like in his mid-30s here. It's awesome. And he gives off Han Solo vibes. And it is so cool. So I can't get over how amazing this film is. Like, even now, I've seen so much like CGI and technology, but I just like this stuff so much. It is just so classic. Just the light cycle races. I know it's campy, it's silly, it's dumb. It's so cool. Like, I just think it's amazing just to see like that technology and how it looks, how it interacts and everything. It's just really fun to see that. Just like the weird spaceships and weird like tanks everyone's driving in through this completely rendered city. It's just unbelievably insane in all the right ways. So we meet a couple guys inside the program that are going to have to like compete with Flynn. One of them is Ram. Now Ram is the program made by his friend at the office who's like, hey, can I have some popcorn? What a random thing that goes nowhere. Another thing that goes nowhere that I saw. We were looking at it's Alan's office. We see the Gort, what the hell is it? Gort Klato something. It's like this motto. I'll put it up on screen. It's this motto from the day the earth stood still. It's pretty much just like in the native language of Gort. And I'm like, that's really fun. What a weird inclusion that I adore. Like just cheap science fiction. When you do cheap science fiction right, it's awesome. But nothing about this movie was cheap. It's great. I really like it. I do. So we meet Ram, he's working there, he's trying to like help out our hero of the story. Who is our hero of the story? It's his title, that is the film, Tron. Now Tron is played by the same actor of Alan, and it's just amazing to me. It's very much like that Luke Skywalker and Han Solo thing. Flynn's gonna be over here just acting out, being crazy, just kind of like the over dramatic, like what? And we just got Luke Skywalker and Tron, and he's just the perfect guy protecting the users, protecting everybody. It's amazing. It's so cool. I think Tron is my favorite character in this because he's just pure. He's just good. He's just doing his task. That means oppressing the dictator. Do it, man. Free your people. It's sick. It's so cool. I just adore it. And we talked about the light cycles. They're so fun and so creative. I love the disc game. I think it's just such a simple disc. Like just throwing your disc. It's awesome. Your entire existence is on the disc. And there's like that weird game with like the fucking, what is that? The hook or I don't know what you'd call that. It's kind of lacrosse-y. There's another sport that has that hook. I don't know. It's awesome. You just like hit the platform and the ring around it vanishes and you have to like jump around. That's so cool. This looks awesome. It's amazing. And the sound design is so retro and vintage. Just long extended sounds of just insanity and just, I can't get over this film. Like, I just literally watched it. As I'm recording this, I just finished watching it. And I'm like, I would watch it again right now. Because it's so insane. It's so weird. It's amazing. And just so many bright colors of nonsense. There's a villain in this piece. There's actually two. I guess three, technically. Dillinger's the one villain in the real world. He's just your corporate CEO loser. He sucks. Who cares? Then you have Sark. And Sark is the program run by Dillinger. And imagine if Darth Vader was the worst person you've ever met. Like, not in terms of, like, evil, just, like, completely incompetent at every turn. Because Sark does nothing. He messes up at every single turn. He tries to, like, oh, it's easy to defeat this. Nope, they're too fast for us. Nope, they just slipped away. What a complete loser. Can't do anything right. And the big bad of this film is the Emperor. He's the master controller. It's just a big face on a screen. And then when it's not on that screen, it's just a big spinning red face, like the supreme intelligence of the Kree Empire. It's weird. And I'm like, this is the villain? Just like a virus, pretty much. And the way we defeat it is literally just like jumping inside of it and then having Tron throw his disc at it. Yeah, that's how we defeat it. And I'm like, that's cool. that actually works for me, because I'm like, that's all you do. You just break the program and it would be destroyed. It's like that's all you got to do. There's nothing else to it like that. It's so simple and just works so well. I really like it. I'm amazed it works so well. I think one of the funniest things about this film is at the very end when we actually reveal that Dillinger stole everything from Flynn, and then suddenly Flynn's just the boss of the company. Like, what? Why does that work? How would that happen? Just like corporate's like, oh, he's bad. Well, you took from this guy, so he's probably the smartest one. I don't think that's how things work, but I'll allow it. Just insanity. And I didn't remember that much about this film when I went into it. Just the scenes, I completely forgot it just about like testing the laser. We're like, we're going to dematerialize this orange. And then we do it. I forgot about like the extended scene of just like Flynn trying to like pilot that weird ship like from the Space Paranoids game he made. It's weird. It just looks like, Jeff Bridges in a room just pretending he's moving a stick. It's so cool. I adore it. I just love everything about this film. It works so well. It looks so beautiful. And it is dated. Yes, it is dated, but that's the point, Pac-Man's dated. Pac-Man is dated. We still play Pac-Man. So when you look at the effects of this movie, with the weird shits with the outline of the colors and just the randomness in the background and the aesthetics and the brightness of the blues and the pinks and the reds and the oranges and the blacks, and they're just walking on nothingness. It looks cool. It feels cool. It's authentically adorable and does so much fun stuff. I really like everything Tron was setting up. This film worked for me on every level. The action was great, a little slow at times, but no more slow than stuff from the 80s. Tron is such a fascinating character that I think you could do a really cool character study on that. He is one of those archetypal heroes. Your Luke Skywalker, your Captain Americas, just that classic hero who's doing the right thing. I like that a lot. I like the use of Yoli, I think it's Yoli, like the in version of Laurie when she's like in the actual place. It's fun. It's cool. And it works. Like, there's the girl. I love when they learn to kiss. That was such a funny moment. Like, that was awesome. Like, Flynn kisses her. She's like, oh, that's connection? We just, like, hugged and stuff. We can, oh, yeah. And he's like, hey, that was cool. We should do more of that. I'm like, yep, this is great. This is how this is the inside of computers. When you were looking at the computer, I got a computer next to me. I got a microphone in front of me. Inside that circuit board, inside all that stuff is the program. It's just a bunch of people in blue lights and hockey pads just protecting each other from flying discs, stupid light cycles, and all this amazing shit. And that's Tron. One of the greatest looking films, in my opinion. One of my favorite films of all time, with a great cast, with great characters. And it sucks that it didn't get a sequel for a while, because when it got the sequel, was it a little too late? So 26 years after the original release of the first film, and a couple years before every other film started to do what this did, we had the release of Tron Legacy. This was, I would say, not highly anticipated. It was like, Disney owns a property, let's make something before we buy Star Wars. Because you can feel every single outing in this era that Disney put to screen that they made before they did Star Wars. And I have no doubt we're going to talk about them all at some point. But Tron Legacy is based on this fantastic concept of a film from the 80s. And when you are doing something from the 80s, you are bringing it back in the 2010s, there's a certain thing that you have to do. And that is your legacy film. This movie is literally called Legacy. It's the next generation of these characters we are seeing. And you know what? I haven't seen this one in a long time. This was the one I didn't go back and watch just because I like the first Tron so much, and I never knew if Tron Legacy was going to live up to my respect for the first one. After watching this for this video and just getting back into the world of Tron, I love this film. I love this world. I love the characters. I love the concept. I love every aspect of this film. Every silly little detail. I just adore it. It is just so complex and nuanced and trying something different. This is before Ready Player One and Black Mirror and VR. Every one of these things are concepts that we are seeing promenading in culture now. They come from Tron. Going into a digital world, meeting these programs and these identities of these things that are built by man, and seeing what you can create as essentially a god in this world. It's so cool. I just have such a respect for the filmmakers involved because somebody said, whoever it was, Disney, whether it was Koninsky or whoever, was just like, I see Tron as something that can be an auteur film. Because as much as this is a big action flick that we're putting a bunch of money into, it's an auteur film. It's got a certain look. It's got a certain direction. It's a big upgrade from the 80s visual effects, and I love those visual effects from the 80s. Just the bright colors where you're walking in nothing. This is just glossy and just smooth, and everything just looks shiny and prestigious, and it's like you're just walking on this beautiful colored glass and these bright colors with this beautiful score that makes it feel ethereal and techno all at the same time. It's like if Blade Runner was made by a genius. I just adore every aspect of this world. It is so bright and dark and just has all these different emoting features to it. I adore how this film looks aesthetically. It is gorgeous. Just the tournament scene with the glass floor and everything's just shiny and bright all around them, to like the depths of the streets where it's just grungy and techno and this 80s future where everything's so dark and alluring, but there's a bright aesthetic to it. The clubs, the world, everything about this world, I adore. I like every aspect of this film, and I am amazed it holds up. So here's a little piece of behind the scenes that some of you might be fascinated in. I'm going to tell you right now. The character you see in the thanks for watching segment of everything, the logo you see for this, like on TikTok and YouTube, Tsunami himself, the character, the superhero I made named Tsunami, his entire inspiration comes from my two passions. When I was a young guy, it was just those cool rings and discs that they had in Tron, and my love of surfing culture. I mixed those together and created this superhero. Everything about this channel comes from Tron Legacy, because when I saw this film as a kid, it just blew my mind. And that aesthetic, that world has just stuck with me. And I'm like, I want to make a superhero like that. So that's what Tsunami is for this channel. He is my inspo from Tron and surfing culture, which I love. But we're not here to talk about that, although I could. We are here to talk about the legacy of NCOM and where it comes from. So back in 82, Kevin became the CEO for some reason. I still think that's silly. And I guess a couple of years later, he met a nice girl. He fell in love. He got married. They don't specify if he was married, but he had a son named Sam. The mom died later on. And then when the kid was about 6, I guess they say, the kid didn't look 6. That's all I'm going to say. Kevin went missing. Nobody heard from him again. And Sam kind of grew up on his own. His grandparents actually died a few years after his father vanished. So he kind of just was like the surrogate son to Alan Bradley, which is awesome. Bring Alan back. I forgot he was in this because I hadn't seen it in so long. That's great. Just like, because that's just the whole franchise thing. That is just every actor who was in the first movie coming back for a small role, letting the legacy happen. This is about Sam. Sam is Kevin's son, and he is coming in here just to do something beautiful and powerful and making a statement for himself. And what better way to do that than with 2010's icon, Garrett Hedlund, because guess what? He is so 2010. There is no other 2010 actor quite like Garrett, man, because I don't know him in anything else, really. He's just of that time, and it's beautiful. He does the same thing as Jeff Bridges, where it's like, this guy looks like he's 18 or 38, and he's somewhere in the middle. It's the perfect casting for this, and it works so well. And I think that's the thing I really like about this. It's respecting its own lore while still building something new. You know, it is instinctively showing you, here's the beats. We're going back to the arcade. Here's the couch everyone had the fun meeting on. Here's Alan Bradley telling the son, like, hey, your father lost his mind working on this stuff and doing these things, going down this route and becoming kind of the recluse that he was. I don't know if that's healthy for you. It works really well. And then, again, the big laser bay laser comes back, and it blasts Sam. It's not as nice looking like the blast that it hits Sam where he goes into the Tron world. It's like, just think about like the classic 80s one where it's just like the guy freezes, digital thing coming down, just taking him. It's cool. This one's just like a bright light. He's in the world, and it looks like a real world now. I think that's the thing I just cannot believe about this. In 2010, we had something look this amazing. This holds up incredibly well compared to the shitty CGI we have today. Oh my God. I was blown away. Because I thought I was going to this with like the goggles of like a young person with like the nostalgia where I'm like, this is cool. Look at how cool and everything looks. Like, this holds up so well. The colors are great. Like I said, just like the glass floor for everything. It's beautiful. And the redesigns for the world, they don't have the goofy hockey helmets anymore, which kind of sucks. I wish they did have them, but everything's slick and black and has these beautiful colors, and it's like the red and the orange and the blue, and everything's just this perfect color. It's awesome. And we do get another tournament scene. It looks better than the first one. I like the first one, and I think that's the thing that this movie feels like compared to a lot of others that try to do this. The first Tron was a visual treat. That was just a special film that had so much greatness going for it. This one feels like I said, it's a director, it's somebody at Disney, it's everybody involved. It's being like, we can make Tron special. We have the technology to actually do something cool with it, so let's try. The disc game was so awesome. I just remember when I was a kid, that was the scene for me. Watching it this time, I'm like, this looks amazing. Just like the bright lights, everyone throwing things around. It looks so good. The action in this is so clean, too. It just looks so prestigious and bright and focused. I adore it. And the light cycle chase, my God. We don't make things like this anymore. It is... because it's just not loud. It is just a low beat and the low hum of a score. And then it's just watching these beautiful works of art, these beautiful colors just shine across this floor, ups and downs, the twirling all about. It is just spectacular to look at. It's a visual treat. It is one of the highlights of doing movie tales for me so far. I've watched a lot of great stuff, and I say this every time, this is probably the best thing I've watched. I think Tron Legacy, out of every film we've talked about on Movie Tales so far, really showed me that sometimes genre flicks that are big blockbusters can be special because we don't make them like this anymore. Again, that light cycle chase was beautiful. Just the actual storyline itself is amazing. It's not uncommon. We've seen this trope a few times since and before, but it's surprisingly brilliant. Garrett Hedlund gets a really great performance. I will say, if I had one point of contention with this film, and it's a small one, it's that Quora, played by Olivia Wilde, is an interesting character that doesn't really need to be the character she is. So there's only one thing I would actually kind of change about this film. Not a lot. I would make Quora somehow intrinsically connected to Tron, whether it's just like a rebooted version of Yori or something. I just think having that character be a part of the previous generation would just add more depth to her, as opposed to being one of these special things that Kevin just picked out of the rough, But I like the storyline either way. And basically the storyline is Kevin remade Clue. In the first movie, Clue died within like the first 10 minutes. Like we just saw, Kevin created this thing. It got shot down. He was trying to create a program to like get all this like data and everything, security files saved up somewhere. Clue gets destroyed. Well, he rebuilds Clue. Him, Clue, and Tron are trying to like rebuild this world. They're creating a new network. Sark and all of them died in the last one. We're starting new. We're starting something different. Well, Clue needs to make everything so perfect that his perfect was a tyrannical rule, once again emulating the Empire. And again, this is right before Disney bought Star Wars, so you see they wanted to play with that a little bit. It's brilliant. Like, that makes sense to me. Like, the idea that Kevin himself was so obsessed with this world, he created a being so obsessed with the world that its perfection became its downfall. That is the story of Luke Skywalker in The Last Jedi. That is all of this. That is just the legacy character who has built this identity for himself, this shroud of mystery as a godlike figure, crumbling to his knees at the weight of the responsibility that he cannot possess. I cannot believe we're seeing this in 2010. This show, this whole movie is ahead of its time. If this came out not even like maybe 5-6 years ago, it would be revered as a special because there's something so perfect about this. And Jeff Bridges is not phoning it in. There's times in this era where you feel like Jeff Bridges is just going through the motions. Look, he did Iron Man a couple years before this. I'm sure that's why they're like, hey, let's do Tron again. It's amazing because he is playing two very distinctive roles. Kevin Flynn is this old wise man who's kind of zenning out Lebowski style, suddenly becoming this guy again who has to step into the forefront and become that figurehead that he once was. And he's playing Clue. And look, the CG for Clue, it ain't perfect. We'll never get this completely right. We're getting closer, and it sucks that we're getting closer sometimes. But seeing Clue and that old and young Jeff Bridges side by side, it's amazing. And you just see the way he is commanding his voice and his presence as Clue is just spectacular. That is some good Jeff Bridges right there. It's working so incredibly well. And I just adore it. I think it's just a perfect addition to this world to have the villain be the hero of the last film. That's brilliant. That's such a clever twist. And it works so well. Even if you are not familiar with Tron, like, it's just a cool idea. And I love seeing that, and just the coloring, the way that his orange is slightly brighter than the rest to show you that he is still intrinsically connected to the guy in white, which is our hero in Kevin. Unbelievably cool. It is such a cool concept. Everything about this film, it's blowing my mind. It's blowing my mind that 12 years ago, somebody said, what if we took a stupid property from the 80s and actually made a sequel that's really good? That's amazing to me. This could have fallen apart so fast. But it didn't, and it became something special that I revere and I love and I admire, and I cannot believe we got something that works from this. It is so cool. I need to talk about this because it's very important, and something that I think gets overlooked a lot in film, that is the score. If you're not a cinephile or an auteur of film, you can overlook the score sometimes. And you know your big ones, your John Williams, your Hans Zimmers, but the score behind this is all done by one of the coolest bands of the 90s and 2000s, Daft Punk. Daft Punk is awesome. They're not touring anymore. I guess they split up for whatever reason. This is a great soundtrack, and it is a great score. The cameo is funny. It doesn't add anything or take away anything. It's like, yeah, they look like they'd be a part of this world. Throw them in there. It's cool. I cannot believe these two guys made such a distinctive and creative soundtrack, because the music is techno, the music is noir, the music is upbeat and intense. It is so good. It sounds like a score from a film. It doesn't sound like an artist trying to emulate something. It sounds fantastic. It adds to the ambiance so well and does so many great stuff. Like I said earlier, the fight scenes are fantastic. Not just the scenes at the beginning, but as the story progresses and the way you just see the fight in the club, the fight on the train, everything that just works. It looks good, and it's in focus, and it's incredibly well done. There is very little about this film that I think looks bad. I think my biggest criticism I would have in terms of like the aesthetic is that everybody kind of looks too similar and distinctive. Like, you could say this about Tron, like from the 80s. Everybody looked a certain way, and they all had like these stupid, goofy outfits on. That was just what we could afford. This is a $100 million movie. We could try to get a little more distinctive in times, and we do. You know, we got, what's the guy's name? Michael Sheen here as Castor and Zeus, and that's a great scene. Little cliched, but if you're doing the noir thing, you have to have the crazy guy that runs the bar, that runs the brothel, whatever. It works well when he sells them out. I like it. I buy it. He's having fun. He's having fun. What more could you ask for? That guy knows how to have fun on screen. It is just an incredibly amazing thing to see. I like all aspects of this film. Every single piece of dialogue worked. Every single character moment worked. The relationship between the father and son coming together, it works well. And it's playing with this fun concept of being a god in a world where you're creating these things, this new species that you didn't create. I forget what he calls them, the ISOs, I think, where they are all of human existence and knowledge wrapped into one thing. They know everything. And the cool concept of bringing Korra into the real world, there is so much sequel potential there, and it's kind of a shame we didn't get to see it. Because it's there. MCOM is still there. We're still in like a greedy, CEO company, this like big business run by these assholes who are trying to sell and profit off this guy's vision of changing the world. It's a concept we see so much in today's science fiction that it's amazing. This film came out in 2010 and it still holds up. It still works so well. It feels timeless, effortless, and it's so cool. And it is called Tron Legacy. We do see Tron. And this is another thing I really like about the film. The storyline for Tron is such a brilliant one. He gets corrupted by Clue, and at the very end, he is saved, and he reverts back to his colors. He reverts back to the blue after sacrificing himself to save his friends, essentially. I adore it. I love every aspect of that. I love every second of it. I adore Tron Legacy. What this world was built on, what this legacy is built on is fantastic. And everything about this film, right down to the motorcycles, to the acting, to the writing, to the silly nature of making this serious. I can safely say, in today's climate, with all of our franchises and movies based on movies, based on movies, based on games, based on movies, Tron has officially earned a place in my heart as one of the greatest franchises that hasn't gotten the special treatment. Two great films with great ideas playing against each other in a modern day context that works so well for the 80s, the 90s, the 2000s, and the 2010s. Everything about this is special, it's cool, it makes me smile, and it makes Tron Legacy not only one of the best movies we've talked about on this channel, one of the greatest franchise legacy movies ever created. The tension is there, the characters are there, every aspect of this film holds up incredibly well, and if you haven't watched either of these amazing films, I recommend you do so. And I want to thank my audience, those of you who voted in the polls for what we're going to talk about in this double feature. Thank you, 50% of you, for voting for Tron and Tron Legacy, because I had an absolute blast watching these films. Now that is going to do it for this rendition of Fantastic Tales, and we will be back hopefully at the end of the month with our second double feature. Now, thank you guys so much for watching this video. Be sure to like and subscribe to the channel. As always, you can check me out on Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter. And as always, I will catch you in the next one. Have fun, stay safe, good luck, fight for the users, because that's what we do.